Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user AdorableWillow4984. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to tell my mother-in-law the gender of my unborn child? I'm a 27-year-old woman and have been married to my husband who is 28 for 2 years. I am currently 22 weeks pregnant with our first child. We decided we wanted to keep the gender a surprise as it didn't matter to us and we'd be happy either way. The issue, however, is my mother-in-law. There is a slight culture divide here. I am Caucasian while she and my father-in-law are Chinese. My husband is their only child and was born here a few years after they immigrated. I am the youngest of 6 girls. Seriously, have no idea how my parents didn't kill us growing up, lol. And my mother-in-law and father-in-law never miss a chance to talk about what a shame it is my parents never had a boy, and having so many girls, it's clear they're unlucky, while bragging about the fact they had a son their first try. This gets to me, but I've heard it a million times before, so I mostly ignore it. When we were just dating, my then boyfriend, now husband, explained it was just a cultural point of view for them to view male children as the goal, and to give him credit, he always shut them down when the conversation started down that path, though they always end up bringing it up another time. Now I am pregnant and she is pressuring us to tell her the gender. She was not happy when she found out we wanted it to be a secret and actually cried over us keeping such important information from her. She insists it's important we know what the gender of the baby is. I won't lie, I have a slight fear over how she'll react if it's a girl based on her comments about me and my sisters in the past. My father-in-law, meanwhile, is backing up my mother-in-law and scolding my husband constantly for upsetting his mother like this. I know he hates upsetting them and is starting to cave from the pressure. I really don't want to tell her until the baby is here, but I feel like an a-hole as I know it's getting to my husband. Now, he hasn't once complained and is always shielding me from their scolding in this, but I can tell it's getting to them. I'm beginning to wonder if I should just cave and find out to tell them so they'll stop putting pressure on us and deal with the issues that could raise up later if it's a girl, but I hate that I'm being pushed to this choice. Am I the a-hole? No, Opie, of course you're not the a-hole. It is yours and your husband's baby. Therefore, yours and your husband's decision. And it's a 2 yes, 1 no kind of decision. Now, in my opinion, it does not matter if their obsession comes from culture, tradition, whatever it is, because they don't have a choice. What I would be more concerned about here is the complete power play that's going on behind it. Thing that happens if your husband breaks this time and either tells them behind your back or pushes you into doing it is that the floodgates are open now and they, the in-laws, will get to absolutely control your marriage because that will mean your husband keeps being submitted to them regardless if he's actually a grown man that has a family. So the conversation that you really need to have with your husband, OP, is not about revealing the gender or not. It's about what kind of influence your in-laws will have in your relationship. And it should be no more than just their opinion when it's asked for. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Muted Appeal 823 says, not the a-hole. They are trying to wear you down to get what they want. I'm sure it's really tough, but don't give in to them. If you do, this will be a pattern of the rest of your lives. I really cannot wrap my brain around people that act like them. It's not their baby and not their decision. And if I understand correctly, it's not like you're withholding information. You and your husband don't even know. Anonymous says, as a grandchild of someone like your mother-in-law, I was born before ultrasounds were a normal thing. Only the very rich could afford it. My paternal grandma came when I was born, made a really sarcastic comment about my lack of correct genitals when she carried me, and left. My mom never really got over that, and my relationship with my mom has been difficult since day one. Be prepared for the nasty comments and shaming and blaming you if you have a girl. This is something you need to talk through with your husband as he will need to manage them even if the baby turns out to be a boy. Hugs and wishes and have a safe, happy pregnancy and delivery. My Maiko Journey says, not the a-hole. It's an outdated cultural ideal that they have, and you don't have the same feelings toward it. I'd just tell them I was having a girl, even if I didn't know. Let them get everything out of their system, and when you have a boy, you can all be surprised. And Jenna Bear 82 says, not the a-hole. Polish your spine and tell them they'll find out when the baby is born and not beforehand. Don't bring it up again and tell them to leave your dear husband alone. Their tears are their problem. I'd flat out ask what's going to happen if they don't find out sooner. What if they find out it's a girl? Is Armageddon going to happen if they don't find out right away? I'd even tell them that their attitude towards girls makes you more inclined to keep the gender a secret. My own mother gave me hell because I wouldn't tell her the gender of my daughter before my reveal. I kept telling her I wouldn't even know. She wanted my shower to be about her and her gifts. Stay strong, Mama. If you and dear husband bend now, they'll be certain to continue overstepping boundaries. Cultural differences have nothing to do with it. Congratulations. Additional information from Opie's comments. They hated him dating me because I wasn't Chinese at first. Then, doubly hated it when they learned I was one of 6 girls. He eventually got them to back off on this matter. I don't know exactly what he said as I wasn't present for that conversation, but I believe it was a threat about it being me or no one at all. He ended up staying with me for a week after that and going zero contact with them to show he was serious. Honestly, I'm just glad they haven't tried to move in yet. Some of my husband's friends are dealing with that exact issue after they got married and started having kids, and my husband has been raised in the belief of honoring your parents, etc. He'd never leave them on the doorstep. He does defend me as best as he can, such as taking the brunt of their pressure right now, but he's struggling against his own upbringing. I love him so much for trying, but I know none of this is easy for him. Additionally, my husband actually doesn't want our child having a Chinese name or learning Mandarin. He hates speaking Mandarin and basically never uses it unless he's talking to his parents, and even then they communicate 60% of the time in English and doesn't want to inflict it on our child. I've gotten him to agree to a Chinese name simply because I know they will freak the F off if the kid doesn't have one, as it's all about image and how bad it would look if their grandchild doesn't have a Chinese name. But it'll be basically never used and will use their English name. The Mandarin, however, I'm letting him take the lead on this, as he knows firsthand what learning it felt for him. Though we've agreed to the fact that if our child shows interest in learning when able to communicate, that will give him the opportunity to do so. Opie's edit. So, my mother-in-law and father-in-law came around this morning for tea, uninvited as usual, of course, and began to apply their pressure again to demand the gender of the baby, and I was ready to step in, worried about my husband, as I know this has been a lot of pressure for him, but he surprised me by snapping at them. I've never seen him truly angry with them before. The only time I've ever heard of him being truly angry is, like I said in the comments, when he fought them over dating me. To summarize, he told them that our child's gender was none of their business, and if they kept this up, then any future sons we have will take my maiden name, since I have no brothers to carry on the family name, as they keep reminding me. He told them not to test him, as he'll burn their family tree to the ground. I don't know who was more shocked, them or me. He then told them to get out, and they did leave, though my father-in-law scolded him for being disrespectful and not putting family first, but that was exactly what he was doing. So, it seems my concern was unwarranted and my husband is fine, but this honestly shocked me. I know how much the family means in his culture, so for him to make this kind of a threat, the weight of it isn't lost on me. They also seemed genuinely terrified by that threat. Wow, Opie, your husband does have a spine. Maybe it was a carbon spine that just needed pressure in order to solidify into rock-solid diamond. 'Cause it shines, burning the whole family tree to the ground. Wow. He knew exactly what needed to be said for them to actually hear him. Anyways, we have an update from this post 3 years after it. So let's move on with that to see how this story ends. So, I am currently 19 weeks pregnant with my second child. A bit of an unplanned surprise, as we had planned to wait until our daughter was a little older to have a second child, but it was not an unhappy surprise. And of course, we're leaving the gender as another surprise. We don't care as long as they're healthy. However, this is our last child, even if it's another girl. I grew up with 5 sisters and I know the chaos of a too large household. So one thing I've put my foot down about from the start is 2 children, only barring a surprise multiple pregnancy of course, which thank God this isn't. Anyway, this pregnancy has caused me to reflect on my first one and I remembered my post. I went hunting for and luckily remembered my password. I doubt anyone here cares much, but I'm in a reflecting mood, so I thought I'd post an update 3 years on, and if anyone wants to read it, then I hope you enjoy. So yes, my husband and I had a little girl. It has been incredible watching him grow from an amazing man I love into an amazing father, and she is very clearly the greatest joy in his life. We had a long conversation not long after she was born, and he actually ended up going to therapy to reconcile his feelings on his parents and his culture. He originally did not want her to know any language but English, and basically to ignore his side of the culture, but he eventually realized, thanks to therapy, that he was robbing her of a chance to have a more diverse view on the world, and that his experiences with his culture may not be hers. Through our daughter, he has gotten to see his culture through a fresh set of eyes, and it's like he's discovering it himself for the first time. My mother-in-law and father-in-law, as you no doubt expect, were not happy that we had a daughter and began to push us to try again to have a son almost immediately. My husband and they began to clash more and more as their behavior became abusive towards me and our daughter, and 2 years ago we cut contact with them. We are happier for it and don't live in fear that they will drop around without warning and turn our whole day upside down. We have no intention of letting them back into our lives, don't worry. We've moved twice since we cut them off and they have no idea I'm even pregnant again. Rereading some of the old comments on my original post makes me smile, and my husband is laughing over how many of them were thirsting over him after he clashed with his parents originally. Thank you everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful day and enjoy my rambled reflection on the past 3 years. Well, OP, all I'm going to say is congratulations. You and your husband are a team. You and him both clearly understand that you 3 and in the future 4 are the family, and that's what you protect, that's what you defend, and that's what he did. So here's wishing you 3 for now and you 4 in the future all the best, OP. Take care and thanks for sharing. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole, and it's by user Revolutionary Scar 941. Am I the a-hole for not forgiving my mother-in-law for treating my children different than her other grandchild? My husband, 46, has always been treated different than his half-brothers by both his mom and stepdad. The relationship between his mother and him has always been confrontational, and they have cut each other off lots of times in the past 2 decades. I've always stayed out of it, even though I think it is very toxic, supported him, and just gone along with the flow until recently. We have 4 children, 19 to 13, and my mother-in-law has always been a hands-off, I won't babysit kind of grandma, which is fine. They are our children. But then his brother has a baby, and they all of a sudden, it's the most wonderful thing to be a grandma. She babysits this grandchild full-time, so both parents can work full-time. He's 5 now. Cleans their house and brags about him non-stop. Normal grandma stuff, but doesn't even know our children's birthdays. About 6 months ago, they cut each other off again, and during the fight between them, my mother-in-law says she's so sick of me posting pictures on Instagram of our children bragging about all their accomplishments, graduation, sports, vacations, and how we think we are better than everyone else because we have neurotypical children and money. The other grandchild is autistic and we are both teachers. We aren't rich. A few weeks ago, my husband forgave her, I guess, and they started talking again, like everything is normal. He told me that we are all going to go over to her house tomorrow for a barbecue, and I told him I'm not going and I will not be in the future. I told him I don't care if he invites her to birthday parties and graduations, and I'll be cordial, but I'm not going to have a relationship with her anymore. He's mad and told me I'm being selfish and toxic, that I should forgive and move on and to be a good example, or our children won't forgive us in the future if we make mistakes. Am I the a-hole? No, OP, of course you're not the a-hole. You're just basically setting a boundary. You don't want her toxicity in your life. And I would think from the ages of your kids, 13 to 19, that they should be able to make that choice too if they want. Your husband has a very toxic relationship with his mother, and hopefully it doesn't seep into the way that he has a relationship with his children. But he can't force a relationship between you guys and his mom. He just can't. So no, OP, not the a-hole. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Artistic Being 7421 says, your husband is putting his toxic mother before his children. You think they never noticed they are unloved by comparison? That's bad parenting 101. And Opie responds, I guess this is why it's the hardest for me, because my teenagers do notice now and have made several comments to me how weird it is that she treats their cousin so different. My husband is a very good father and tries his hardest to work through generational trauma, but it's not a light switch. You can't just turn it off. Moist Visit 6969 says, your kids are old enough to know what's going on. And Opie responds, they don't know what she said about me posting and bragging, but they do see for themselves how she treats my husband and them differently and have made several comments over the years about it. MJCU 7272 says, not the a-hole. It's clear she favors his newer family. Your husband is not truly a part of that dynamic and he's too blind to see that. I wouldn't even expose your children to her. And Embarrassed Hat 2904 says, tell that heifer that if she's so miserable that she has such accomplished and happy grandchildren that her ass can unfollow you on Instagram. And Opie responds, I blocked her immediately and will not be allowing her access to our social media accounts again. Alright, well, the community agrees that Opie is not the a-hole, that the mother-in-law is toxic, and that she needs to be out of their lives. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. First time posting on Reddit, so not sure this is how you update, but here it is. Thank you for everyone that commented, especially those who shared their own grandparents' stories. Just for your information, over the past 5 years, the children, mostly the older two because the twins never don't want to see their cousin, have had a choice whether or not they go over to mother-in-law when we do go, and I have had several conversations with them about their feelings surrounding it. Up until 6 weeks ago, it was behavior and favoritism and things we had to infer from the difference in treatment. When she verbalized what I knew all along, that's when it just became black and white for me, and I thought until a few weeks ago the same for my husband. My children are very open with me about their thoughts and feelings in general, usually my husband as well, but surrounding the mother-in-law issues, they were not being open with him. I spoke to my two oldest. I will never tell them what my mother-in-law said about posting on social media and did indeed block her on social media and her phone number as well 6 months ago, about how I am setting a boundary and not continuing a relationship with her ever again. I told them about my thoughts and feelings surrounding the whole situation and how enough is enough. I also did apologize to them about not making a stance earlier. Both the older children haven't seen her in over a year since my daughter graduated and said they weren't comfortable seeing her at all unless I am there. I had a separate talk with my twins, 13 years old, but it was just basically a more age-appropriate version of the first talk. I know they are teenagers, but they are still in the in-between age and a little immature in a good way. They mostly just wanted to see their cousin. They like to play with him, but he comes over to our house once a month when his mom and I have brunch, and they said it's better over at our house to play anyway. They both decided they didn't want to go without me either, and told me life has been more chill without her, which didn't surprise me or my husband, which is why I think he got so upset when I told him I wasn't going. With all that being said, I think it made me realize, and some of your comments, that there are bigger issues that are being caused by this very toxic part of our life and my husband's childhood trauma. When I spoke to him after I talked to the kids, I told him I was making an appointment for family therapy to get an unbiased opinion about our family dynamic, not just including this issue, but just in general, because now I'm concerned about deeper issues that maybe I'm just not seeing and blaming on this one part. My husband was very upset with me and said he would just go by himself and said he doesn't think we need therapy. He reads self-help books to deal with his trauma and has for a very long time, so he's not oblivious to the issues, just thinks he can take care of it himself. I told him he could come to therapy or not, but I was going to set the appointment up and the kids and I were going to go. He spoke to them last night at the dinner table, and all of them basically told him they didn't want to go over there and think life has been calmer without her. He just told them, okay, let me know if you change your mind, and I'm sorry she's been unfair to them in the past. Well, Opie, at least now your kids are safe from her toxicity, and whether your husband decides to do something about him or not, that is his choice. Hopefully he does. In any case, here's wishing you and your family the best, OP. Thanks for sharing and take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.